Welcome to the All49ers show. That's Jose Sanchez. I'm Grant Cohn. We're the people that get stopped in public like, are you the guys from the All49ers show? And we're like, yeah, we are. Anyway, we're going to be talking about 49ers today, Trey Lance. But we want to start with Brandon Aiyuk because Jose had an epiphany last night. Jose gets all the transcripts like me, and we don't throw them away. And it's fun. You can like look through your Gmail, and if you have the right keywords, you can find things. And Jose looked back at the previous pre-draft press conferences, and saw what John Lynch had to say about other players who were up for a fifth-year option that got them picked up. What'd you find?
Well, in 2 years ago, right, we found that Mike McGlinchey's got his picked up. He announced it, and you guys are going to come out here later. Yeah, we're going to pick his up. Now, it might not have been officially. It doesn't matter. He announced it there. We're going to pick it up. Following ensuing year, Nick Bosa. When you guys walk out of this press conference, it's probably going to be an announcement. We picked up Nick Bosa's.
Yeah.
With the page to now, Javon Kinlaw, Brandon Aiyuk, but more highlighted Aiyuk because I think we all know Kinlaw's not getting picked up. He was hushed. First, he was hushed off with your trade question, which I thought was an eyebrow raiser. Then he goes on when they get asked about Kinlaw and Aiyuk, he goes, well, I like to wait and see through a draft.
Why?
What? No, you don't. The other two players who've announced multiple times and years in a row that they have been picked up. Brandon Aiyuk suddenly is who seems the most obvious. Just I would like to think they're grouped up with those other two, McGlinchey and Bosa. You're not going to announce his. I get you have another pick to consider and stuff like that. And the counter would be like, well, they got to consider Kinlaw, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, but years past, they have already told these players and had a decision made. So either one, if they haven't told them yet, oh my God, what are you guys doing? This is kind of Bush League. You haven't told him yet. And number two, are you afraid that he's going to be all sensitive to it? Then come on, that's wild. This is the pros. Grow up. So to me, it's like the only other option is the only reason why you have not picked it up is because you're shopping him. You're considering that because if you pick that up, another team might be like, he's got that $14 million option there. Because what if a team would rather acquire him over the draft and have that option to consider, decline it, extend him anyways, or pick it, whatever option. The point is you give that flexibility to the team that's acquiring him. So to me, I think now what I didn't think was possible, I officially think he is definitely being shopped.
Yeah, the way I look at it is he made it sound like Brandon's going to be on this team this year because probably he will be. I think there's a scenario where they would trade him. I mean, there's a scenario where you would trade anyone, but for him, it's probably like, well, we know the Giants like him. That's been reported. The Giants have the 25th pick. So maybe there's one player the Niners would be interested in at pick 25. And if he's available, the Niners pick up the phone and call the Giants and say, let's do it. And maybe there's a 15% chance that player will be available at pick 25 from the Niners perspective. But, if it's a certain wide receiver or a certain offensive tackle or a certain tight end, they'll do it. I don't know. And so I don't know who it is. I don't know what the likelihood is, but I could see that being the scenario here.
I think that's the only scenario because you would not want to trade Aiyuk for a guaranteed guy who's continued to ascend. And you kind of do need him for 2023, right? This is your all-in year again, which is why they're not really giving Trey Lance too much of a shot, right? Is you have to keep him on. So unless the way that the chips fall, you're starting to get, okay, now I see where it's going. I see where it's going. Kind of the same way with Aiyuk, right? When they drafted him, it's like, okay, we see the way it's going. We got to leapfrog we got to do it. We got to leapfrog the Packers. We got to do it. They're going to draft him. So I think that's the only way you do it is if it gets down to the Giants or if it gets down to the Chargers or the Ravens, because those are other teams who I think, or the Jaguars. Those are the teams I think who, number one, needed another wide receiver. And they definitely could accompany them. And, that makes sense. You got the mid-20s. That sounds like good value for Aiyuk because no one in the top 20 is really going to go after him. So I think in terms of that, I think if you're the Niners, it's depending on – I didn't think about too many about prospects. Like, I don't think they're going to go for another wide receiver. I think they'll try to get the later rounds for one, especially because I don't think in terms of top prospect wide receivers outside of Jackson, Smith, and Jigba, I haven't even seen Jordan Addison not being viewed as a first-round pick. And I was like, really? Wow, okay. So – it's looking very bleak this year. It's more so like a day 2 or day 3 for receivers. So I don't think the Niners do that. I think it's more so like what are the needs? Who they got to replace? Offensive tackle, right? Trent Williams, right tackle's vacant. Tight end George Kittle, who knows? And then maybe another edge rusher or whatever. So those are the ones I think they would be looking at if the way the draft board falls.
Yeah, I don't know what they're looking for. Maybe it's a position, a player. But let's say the 25 is the highest they could get for Brandon Aiyuk. And let's say they want a wide receiver to replace him. Maybe they would be interested in drafting Quentin Johnston from TCU. but he's currently ranked 22nd on Draft Tech, and he might not be available. And they may not like him. If they want an offensive tackle, maybe it's Darnell Wright from Tennessee, the right tackle who's 6'5", 333 that they want. He's currently ranked 20th on Draft Tech, so he might not be there either. And if it's a tight end, maybe they want Michael Mayer, who's currently ranked 17th. So those are guys they could say like, hey, if one of those three guys falls, we think that's a blue chip, franchise cornerstone player will do it. Otherwise, no. And it's possible none of those guys will be there. I don't know. Yeah.
And that's why you keep, this is a big reason why you keep that flexibility. It's just like, we have an idea where some of these players can fall, but we don't know. Because all it takes is one team to really mess up everyone's draft board, right? It just messes up. It's almost like March Madness, but on a lesser scale, obviously, because March Madness is crazy. It's like, all it takes is for one game to ruin your bracket. And all it takes for one team to all of a sudden just, whoa, now all of a sudden the dominoes, the whole butterfly effect change down the line. That's too much why I don't like to get so entrenched into the draft until like weeks before, because you get more of a clear picture of where these guys are going, what teams are feeling. So I think the Niners by now have an idea, and hopefully that's why you hold on to Aiyuk and you make a trade on that draft night if you are going to trade him.
If they do trade Brandon Aiyuk, they'll sell it as, we never thought this guy would be available and love Brandon, but we love this guy too. Nah, it's a business decision if they trade Brandon Aiyuk, just like it was a business decision when they traded DeForest Buckner. And the decision is, it's not really smart to spend a ton of money on him and Deebo Samuel. But the problem isn't Aiyuk, it's Deebo. The problem is that they gave Deebo Samuel a ridiculous contract. And that has sort of made keeping Brandon Aiyuk tricky at best. And so I think they could do it, and I'm sure they're prepared to do it, but there's also probably tempted to, hey man, we could be so much more financially, efficient at this position if we trade him for another wide receiver who, is just as talented, just as highly graded, but younger and on a rookie deal. So that's the business decision they would make. See what they do.
Yeah, they definitely can do it. And again, the only reason why you're able to do it is because you still have no answer at quarterback, and the quarterback's not taking much of any of your salary cap. So that's the main reason why you have all these luxuries and you can do it. And it might benefit you to keep, it will benefit you to keep Brandon Aiyuk because of the quarterbacks you have, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy. They need that extra talent and help and make Kyle Shanahan play call better to get these guys to uplift themselves and look better than what they can be or should be. But ultimately, I still don't prefer a Brandon Aiyuk trade. I still think they should better off, trading for him. But again, picking up his option. But again, like you said, business, it makes sense. It's at some point, we got Bosa coming up, other player. You just don't know. So it's like, and at least Aiyuk, as good as he is now, keeps ascending. It's like, that's the one position, one player that could actually technically be replaceable. And I know, again, like you said, the Deebo Samuel contract, but at least for them, it's like, at least he's more special in terms of scheme fit, in terms of the way he fits with us and what he can do. Even though, again, Aiyuk is the better true wide receiver. It's just, it is possible to replace more of a receiver of his skill trait than it is like someone like Deebo. Yeah,
but can you really trade Brandon Aiyuk and improve in 2023, or do you take a step back? Because he's 25, he's at his best. I understand. I think the template here is when Minnesota traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills and drafted and got a pick back and drafted Justin Jefferson. The offensive coordinator for the Bills was Brian Daboll. He's with the Giants. They're interested to want Brandon Aiyuk. Aiyuk is very similar to Stephon Diggs. So I can see why the Giants would be interested. Daboll's had success with this kind of a trade. The Vikings had success with this kind of a trade, but could the Niners find their Justin Jefferson in this draft? I don't think he's in it. Quentin Johnson would be the guy who might be there at 25. And if he was super good, wouldn't the Giants just draft him? Is he the guy the Niners want? Would you really trade Brandon Aiyuk for Quentin Johnson? Is he better than Brandon Aiyuk? I don't know that he is. Do you have an opinion on Quentin Johnson? TCU.
No, I don't, because I'm too focused on the middle round receivers that they could probably get. And you could probably plug in, of course, there'd be most likely a fall off from Aiyuk, but still probably some enough where you could not make the hole so gigantic where it could shrink it and make it somewhat efficiency. That's why I'm really leaning towards, if the Niners do get like that middle round, that middle 20 pick somewhere around there, is there an offensive tackle that you can instantly plug right there, right tackle, and be secure enough? It doesn't have to be elite, of course, because there's probably going to be some growing pains, but just someone you can plug right there and they can be like, oh, wow, we're actually fairly good there. We're fine. And we actually got a decent wide receiver. We're good. That's the only way I can see it makes work. Because again, they have a gate. The right tackle is still a question mark. And that's huge. And it's like great. How are you gonna get the ball to Aiyuk if you can't pass protect on the right side? What are you gonna do? Just hug George Kittle there the whole time? Now you've capped your offense again. You're gonna put CMC as a pass pro all the time. So that's why I think if you go for the 20s, you have to, you're kind of forced to go tackle. But if you only do that again, if there's a tackle or two that we know we really like this guy and we can put him in instantly and work with him as the season goes along.
You got to get like Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, or Anton Harrison.
Someone that's clear cut. That's like easy,
clear cut day one starter. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. All right. Corey Soto says, we talk about the Niners being relevant for the foreseeable future, yet this core is rapidly aging and we have no replacements for key roles. Guess Purdy will carry this team. Yeah. And they basically threw 3 years worth of first round picks away, which could hurt them down the line when it's time to reload. The fact that you lost a generation of picks. Unless you keep Trey, which they don't want to do, which they would rather not. Bass Spokane Niner fan says, would a Trey and BA package? What would a Trey and BA package get?
I'd get first. It depends on who you're getting. Who's the team that could definitely get a quarterback and I think that's a great package. That's what I've mentioned. That's what I wrote about in what makes how the 49ers can get more in a Trey Lance package. I said add a player and ideally add Brandon Aiyuk. Because he's the one that has the best connection. He's also one that actually makes sense from a trade candidate standpoint as well. And if you're a team, it's like I can easily give that at first because it makes sense because I'm getting a guy who has potential. I know he's still raw. I know there's question marks, but at least I have a receiver who will uplift him and one who has connection with them. So it makes sense to really make it in that package. So I think you get it first with him.
I would love to trade for that package if I were another team because I look at Brandon Aiyuk as someone who's been underutilized. Kyle Shanahan is a scheme coach in the sense that he's not going to change what he does too much for his players. He's going to do what he does. And so Brandon Ayuk's killing it. He's got a great matchup that day. He's like, well, I'm still going to call plays for Christian McCaffrey and Deebo and Kittle. And I feel like what you could do is just put him on another team, feature him, give him more touches, and all of a sudden he's way better. And the teams do that all the time. It's kind of Kyle's been holding back Kittle in a sense. Like Kittle's never a red zone threat his whole career. All of a sudden Brock Purdy comes in, scrambles around, throws to Kittle. He's catching all these touchdowns. It's like, damn, Kyle, like maybe your red zone scheme should have been featuring your tight end a little bit more. That was a tangent. Sorry. Good question. Good question.
That question is also kind of funny because I had a reply when I tweeted out those screenshots about a Chiefs podcaster was saying about I would love for the Chiefs to get him, and I'm like, man, the Niners would definitely probably consider trading him for that 31st pick. 32nd pick. Whose pick they have? No, 32nd. Stupid. For the 32nd pick. And he would make Aiyuk instantly a top 8 wide receiver with Mahomes, maybe even top 5. But I took a little bit more cautious. He'd be a top 8 receiver with Mahomes.
It's actually 31 because the Dolphins got their pick. The Dolphins got their pick like they forfeited their pick.
Oh, that's right. I forget about that. I forget. It didn't get replaced. It just got nuked. That's right.
It got nuked. Yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering why I was saying 31 at first. I was like, wait, why am I saying that right? But I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So the 31st pick, end of the round pick, still the same concept. Yeah. But yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Okay, this is very interesting to me. The Washington Commanders are not going to pick up the 5th-year option of Chase Young. Chase Young was, I believe, the 2nd pick in the draft. He's entering his 4th year. He's tore his ACL. He went to Ohio State. He was, almost as highly graded coming out as Nick Bosa. Did tear his ACL, though, and Washington doesn't want him anymore. So the question is, should the 49ers trade for him? I have a wild idea. What do you think of trading Trey Lance for Chase Young? If you trade Trey Lance by himself, is Chase Young the best you could get back?
Yes. Right now, hell yeah. That's the best you can get, and it'd be worth it.
I would agree. And would both teams be interested?
Yeah, they definitely would consider it. They would be like, this is intriguing. We have both first round coveted picks who are probably. I mean, Trey Lance probably not getting his 5th-year pick off, but at least with the Commanders, we receive Lance, we could probably pick it up, and we have Jacoby Brissett to hold it for a year. Trey Lance is not too terribly far off from a Jacoby Brissett. And I know they talk about Sam Howell, whatever. It's like, yeah, you know what? You can replace Sam Howell with any type of quarterback like that. With, Brock Purdy, for example. Whatever.
Also, they got Martin Mayhew over there who was in the organization when they drafted Trey.
Was he?
I think so.
That was a year.
Maybe he. Hold on. Let me check.
I thought he just left. But I digress. Right. But yeah, it's still someone to consider because again, it's a quarterback needy team. They pretty much said look, we're kind of out on Chase Young. We want him to at least get a prove it year. So I think it's, yeah, if you're the Niners, you definitely consider it. But then again, it's like you're going all in with Brock Purdy. But I mean, they kind of are going already all in with Brock Purdy now, right? So at that point, you really are committed to bringing in another quarterback by the draft, and maybe that makes sense for why you did all this due diligence, with the DTRs of the world, and the Jake Hainers. So I guess that's why you do all that due diligence for us to make Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance is already low key expendable. It's pretty much just depending on the health situation of Purdy, and because Lance doesn't really have value. I mean, we've already said it. We both think he's no more worth than a 4th or 5th round pick. So if you get Chase Young, that's the best you can get.
I just think it'd be really funny if the Niners traded Trey Lance to Washington, and he ends up working out in Washington, and they get Chase Young, and his injuries end up, ruining his career. And it's like, well, that's the 49ers. You traded a quarterback for D lineman with a bum knee. I mean, how many of those guys do you have on your team? How many injured D linemen are you going to bring on your team? First, it was D Ford. First, it was D. The Chiefs were like, man, we've been managing this guy for years. I don't think we can do it anymore. The Niners were like, bring him over here. We got a great training staff. That didn't work out. Then it was Javon Kinlaw, 1st-round pick. They knew what they were getting into. They thought they had a plan. It didn't work. Chase Young would be a trifecta. I feel like if you're a D lineman or anyone and you got a messed up knee, you want to stay as far from Santa Clara as possible. It's not good. Something's going on there. They should check. I don't know. Is it the power plant next door? It's next to a power plant. Did you know that?
Washington?
Santa Clara. Their training facility. There's a big power plant right next door. Maybe it's the electromagnetic waves.
I'm not going there ever again.
Maybe it's just the vibes. It's just the vibes in Santa Clara. It's bad vibes.
It's gonna make me start balding if I start going there again. I would say the only part of Chase Young versus D Ford and those other two is like they were, first of all, D Ford. We had like a plethora of examples. Like this guy is literally a walking glass. Like you better cross your fingers. He does not, have half of that. And guess what? He had exactly that and more. And then Javon Kinlaw, of course. It's like, do you really want? It was a mix of he barely showed up his final year in college in a flash of literally just 4 games and the knee. So that was already kind of dumb. And then Chase Young would be like more like, okay. But I ultimately, I think if you're the 49ers, you really want to trade Trey Lance, you probably should do it. I still think you should keep on to Trey Lance instead of acquiring Chase Young, just because, it's never D-line's a great. You need to reload a little bit more on your D-line, right? Especially on the edge, and Chase Young would help you. In theory, it would help you, but that injury scare is too much. And there's a reason why they're declining it. They must know something about his knee. They're scared about it. Maybe there's something about practice. Whereas the 49ers, it's still worth it for you to at least just play out this year for Lance, because the upside, even if you don't meet it, even if it's obvious you don't meet it, if people think that, it's worth it just figuring it out, because the main issue of this team every year is quarterback. No, we don't talk about defensive line. Sure, we talk about like they should have been where was defensive line like the quarter half of the last year, right? But still, ultimately, it comes down to the quarterback, and it's worth more seeing what you have in Lance than giving away now and just to acquire another pass rusher.
Also, if you think Lance is a bust, what is Chase Young? I mean, Chase Young had 7.5 sacks his rookie year. Great. That was 2020. 2021, he had 1.5 sacks in 9 games. And last year, he had no sacks in 3 games. So what is Chase Young? I mean, he's actually trending toward the Javon Kinlaw trajectory. So Niners, I don't know that this is actually the solution for the 49ers here. Chase Young, damaged goods. Yeah, because Ben Peterson will work that out. Bring him to Ben. Ben's got a plan for that knee, a proven plan.
You have to wonder if Chase Young isn't probably, as the more we talk, isn't worth almost the same as maybe a little bit more as Chase. I mean, as Trey Lance, maybe you can get maybe the Commanders can get like a 2nd or 3rd at best.
Maybe
2nd is a little bit of stretch. The 3rd I feel confident in, but it's like it's pretty much kind of the same with Trey at that point. So it's like it's kind of like an apples to apples Trey. Like again, one's more valuable, a quarterback. Again, I know
not to the Niners. Not to the Niners. So the Niners, it goes defensive lineman, wide receiver, running back, tight end, long snapper, kicker, quarterback, head coach, quarterback, in that order.
All right, linebacker's a little higher. Come on.
That's true. All right, so there's a rumor going around Reddit that Houston Texans are thinking about trading for Mac Jones, that they would trade their number 2 pick to the Patriots for like 2 firsts and Mac Jones and a 4th. I mean, it's a rumor on Reddit, but if it were true, Would it surprise you that D'Amico and Bobby Slowick would be more eager to trade for Mac Jones and Trey Lance?
Would it surprise me? No, because they were obviously in on those conversations and know everything about the research that went down, especially Slowick. And again, ever since I watched that D'Amico Ryans head coach introductory press conference with the Texans, he pretty much said, like, we don't have to take a quarterback at number 2.
Right.
And as the gets closer, everyone's starting to realize that, even as more rumors come to be. And it's like, yeah, dude, I said, right. If you just watch this press conference, you knew. I've been saying this for like 2 months now. It's like he literally says, I just need a winner, or I just need someone who can run the offense efficiently. He didn't say we don't have to put it all on the quarterback. And I'm like, oh God, they definitely are disciples of Kyle Shanahan. And if you're the defensive coach, but I think that's something that all defensive coaches view. Like, they always we just need someone that's in there, and then I can play my defense good. We just need him not to lose the game, to put my defense in a pinch. So that's right. It's really spoken like a real, honestly, a real true defensive guy, not just a Kyle Shanahan disciple. I just think it makes
Kyle Shanahan's a defensive coach at heart.
Yeah, essentially. So I think Mac Jones, you get there, Casare's probably like, hey, I think we could swindle this guy. I mean, we could probably get him for like a 2nd-round pick, and we could save all these other picks, and we can really boost up our defense. And then we're probably looking at almost competing for that 7th seed or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just wonder if the 49ers are down on Trey Lance, which that seems to be the case. They say they don't say they are, but it seems like they are. Then,
yeah, they're definitely more down than up.
Anyone that worked for the 49ers the last few years might be down on them too. And to your point, Martin Mayhew did not. He was not with the Niners in 2021, 2022. You were right. He left before then. So maybe Washington's a possibility, but I could see Houston preferring Mac. Also, their general manager is from New England. But if their first move, D'Amico, is to trade for Mac Jones, I mean, that's a waste. That's like signing Brian Hoyer as your first move. Like, that's pretty much what that is. So I hope D'Amico doesn't do that. I think trading for Trey would be smarter, and I wonder if D'Amico would figure that out. Again, I think the best place for Trey Lance to end up would be Seattle. And I know the Niners wouldn't trade him there, but if he just ends up in Seattle, Pete Carroll is great at just pumping confidence into people. Quarterbacks, I believe in you. I mean, it's basically what he did for Geno. Kyle does everything but that. He gives you the scheme, the defense, the weapons, but he's very negative and demanding, and if you're not good right away, he goes to the backup quarterback, and he loves backup quarterbacks. Kyle loves backup quarterbacks. He's great at developing backup quarterbacks. I think he's the best at it.
I mean, we've seen Kyle help multiple times with all the quarterbacks this past year, like pretty much get animated and even verbally yell at them. How many times have you've had some of your peers go up there and like, Kyle, what were you saying to Brock? Or what were you saying to Trey? I mean, it's like or Jimmy. We've seen him like not just get animated, but again actually yell. So it's definitely like that pressure. It's just like just run my goddamn play, or just do it right. Like, stop getting cute or something like that. That's why when Brock was that against New Orleans where he goes all the way to the left, or was that Seattle? No, I think that was Seattle. He goes all the way to the left, and then he comes all the way back to the right and rolls it out, and almost has that beautiful and I think Aiyuk dropped it or something like that. Yeah. I think Kyle was definitely pissed on that one, even though it was almost a sweet play. So it's stuff like that that's like, yeah, it's really pissed off. Yeah.
You see him blow up on his quarterbacks on the sideline. You don't see Pete Carroll do stuff like that.
No. He's just
he's the cheerleader.
Shooting his gun. I'm like, come on. All right. Butt pat. You got it. You got it out there. Yeah, it would be good.
No, what he would say to Trey is, dude, you're the best. You're the best. You're the best. You're so good. What Kyle says, I think, is you suck. You suck. Prove me wrong. You suck. Prove me wrong. And I think, that's good for Matt Ryan, maybe, who had been 28 and maybe had become a little complacent after a few Pro Bowls. Like, hey, challenge me. But, man, Trey, nah, I think he needs Pete Carroll's type of coaching. Like, no, dude, let's build you up. That's what Alex Smith needed from Jim Harbaugh. I think that's what Trey Lance needs. It's not like he's a cocky guy who's overconfident coming to the 40. He's not overconfident. That's not his problem. You know what I mean? No,
his character, he's a very upstanding guy. But yeah, Mac Jones, D'Amico, don't do it. I mean, again, like I just said, the last topic, you can find these guys later. And it's why I thought I would have shredded the 49ers if they had drafted Mac Jones number 3. Like, you guys are stupid. You can get these guys later. Don't do it.
And what's funny is they think, well, we got a 6-year contract, so we don't have to draft a quarterback year 1. What you should probably think, you have to draft a quarterback every year until you find a franchise quarterback. So you should just be thinking this gives us more opportunities to draft quarterbacks and get it wrong. So if you really like C.J. Stroud freaking take him and give him a shot. And if he's Josh Rosen, take a quarterback next year. You got a 6-year contract, as opposed to just punting on the most important position for a year.
Well, I think if you take Stroud, you pretty much guarantee him at least 2 years of tryout, unless something literally preposterous happens, like a Zach Wilson situation. But
Pulls a
even
Josh Rosen.
2 years, right? Yeah, pulls a Josh. I mean, a lot of those are kind of like more outliers. You know what? They are outliers, but they're becoming more of a trend now, especially like the last like 3-4 years with so many like first round quarterbacks not being like instantly elite. But
if you take a quarterback and he's not elite, and then the next year you're in a position to take someone even better, like your fan base will be like, dude, take that. Like let's say you take, CJ Stroud, and then you're the worst team in the league and you suck, and then you're in position to take Caleb Williams. Like, who cares? Take Caleb Williams, trade CJ Stroud. Great, you got Caleb Williams. Great. It worked out.
There's definitely going to be the debate, though, about like, we spent this pick last year already. Let's just keep rolling out and see what he's got and use that pick elsewhere to build around the team and uplift him. And there's always going to be that pushback. There's never going to be like that consensus of that, of it being that.
Yeah, I guess every team would do it different, but I mean, the Cardinals traded Rosen for Kyler Murray, and Kyler's better.
I still think that that's different. New regime came in than the year before.
I feel like the Cardinals try to leak a bunch of stuff about Kyler to make him look bad, but really they've done very little to help him. Like, I saw something, they've spent all their first round picks on like linebackers and defense, and they've drafted two offensive linemen since he's been on the team. Like, that's ridiculous. That's dumb. So I have to side with Kyler on that. He should have played baseball.
I mean, all the leaks, like you said, are trying to like, and then Las Vegas A's, to defame the
on the one hand, they try to make him look bad, and the other hand, they give him the contract. It's like, what are you doing?
That's what I'm saying. Like, you guys are doing those things to defame him, but it's really, you're making yourself look stupid
exactly
because you're the one that extended him, which I thought it was early. It's like, what are you doing this so early for? Why?
Right.
Why?
Right.
He's clearly immature. I mean, especially this year, he's yelling at DeAndre Hopkins and stuff like that. His coach, like, GA, relax there, Mr. Unaccomplished. This is the problem with Mac Jones. Like, he's over there, like, screaming at everyone. And it's like, dude, shut the hell up. Who are you? Stop.
How good would Jalen Hurts be if the Eagles spent all their draft picks on linebackers instead of offensive linemen? I mean, I love Jalen Hurts. He's really good, but you have to acknowledge he has the best offensive line in the league. It really helps a young quarterback. I love how teams think, what does a quarterback need? A good defense. Well, yeah, until he gets hurt. Like, what he really needs is someone to blocking.
Just learn from the Colts and Andrew Luck. They forced him into early retirement. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the one example you need. That's the one example you need.
Yup. Chris Grove says, yesterday's convo, I live in Las Vegas. Tourists won't care about the A's, but what fans from Yankees, Sox, Rangers, Angels, or any team not want to go to Vegas to watch their team? A's will succeed here. So, okay. So, like, when the Yankees so when a big team comes to town and there's some New Yorkers in town, they'll go see the game. But what about when, like, the Kansas City Royals are in town, or the San Diego Padres, or the Florida Marlins? I know there's interleague and stuff, but I'm just saying, like, that's how it used to be with the Raiders too in the 80s. They could win a Super Bowl the next year. If they played the Niners in the LA Coliseum, they'd fill it up. If they played the Saints, there'd be no one there, even though the Raiders were a great team with Marcus Allen and Bo Jackson. Like, no one gave a shit in LA because, like, oh, it's not a marquee matchup. It's a great day in LA, not going to see football.
The Rangers or the Angels? Why are they mentioned in here? Don't mention them, especially the Angels. And what do you think? They're going to fill up those? I mean, Yankees and Sox, the Red Sox, they're going to be like, they're almost always weekend games because they want it in prime time. But yeah, I think it'll still work. Vegas.
Chris Grove says, no offense, Grant, but between Oakland and Vegas, where will fans travel to? Niners give Trey a damn opportunity. Go Dubs, and I love the channel. Thanks, Chris. But again, you're banking on away, like the fans from away teams filling up the stadium, and that's what happens at SoFi and the Raiders game. So, like, all the fans are away fans. That's what you want.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
I don't care.
They don't. I mean, in football, that hurts your team.
LA's fair weather at its finest, and it's always been just the Lakers and USC town and Dodgers. It's always been those three. Those three.
Going to a basketball game is inherently glamorous. Like, it's like going to a nightclub. You know what I mean? You get the spotlights on you. You dress up. Like, football is nothing glamorous about it. You might get in a fight. You know, you have to be around a bunch of people drinking hell beer, and you're not going to be on television unless you're up in a box.
Do you know that the Raiders freaking put like a nightclub at the end zone where the old black hole used to be? in
Did they?
in Legion Stadium. They have a black. They have
so
when
lame.
it's literally a nightclub. It's literally you can get bottle service. It's promoted by the Win / Encore. So it's
That's so
so
lame.
you're saying like oh all this drunk rowdiness is
Yeah.
like no, it's more just like nightclubby kind of upscaly now. It's like there's no culture there. There's no personality there.
Yeah, it's the Vegasification of Oakland.
It's literally a nightclub football stadium.
Yeah, which is not in the. It's not in the spirit of football. Football is not a nightclubby. Like basketball is a big city nightclubby type of sport. Football thrives in Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like the less going on there is in that area, the more important football is to the cultural fabric of that region. Like that's the way I look at football. The more there's going on, the more it gets pushed down the pecking order of things to do and care about.
I think it'll be fine. They just need a winner. If you win, they will come. If you win, they will come. The home fans, at least. Not the A's though, because baseball is like mid.
Does anyone care about baseball anymore?
No,
I don't know. No. Mansa Toure says Aiyuk can trade to Houston for number 13. I don't think so. 13's real high up there. I feel like Aiyuk on his own would get you like 25 or a little later since he was 25. And then Trey to me isn't worth much right now because the Niners botched the first 2 years of his career. So I don't think they could do it, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Official BNA Music 88 says if fired, Kyle will be backup quarterback coach OC for the New York Jets.
Kyle ain't getting fired anytime soon.
Michael McCann says if SF trades a significant player to grab a first round pick, it needs to be added to the overall impact of Lance's failure. No need to move up otherwise. That's a good point. Maybe that's another reason they won't do that because it's like compounding the
right. Yeah, it's like you had some. Well, is it? Oh yeah, because you could have already had that first round pick. You didn't. You could have gone that offensive tackle anyways.
Like technically, they're drafting Trey Lance in round 1 on tomorrow. Technically, the Niners are drafting Trey Lance for the 3rd time tomorrow. It's gonna be great.
I bet you the Niners won't tweet out tomorrow like with the something pick. The Niners select Trey Lance. No, they want everyone to forget Trey Lance.
And so hold on. So did the Dolphins forfeit this pick? I don't know. I'll have to look.
No, you're right. They did because I was looking at the draft order yesterday where me and you were like texting about like what teams they can go to, and I'm like, dude, it has to be mid-20 teams, like all these teams. And I saw like the Dolphins were supposed to pick like 18th or something like that, whatever, 17th, because since they have a first round exit or whatever. And yeah, it says forfeit, and I don't think I saw a 32, so that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think anyone got filled in for that.
Yeah. Smack Jones says, shout out to Grant. 2 live streams back to back make my work day go by so fast. I'm sure your boss is real happy with me and you. Yeah. So shout out to you. Man, I hate a corporate work day too, so I'm glad.
You just tell his boss.
You just have it on?
The stream gets me efficient.
How do you just have like a little, you just put it on, kind of sneak it? How would you do it? I don't
I work from home. No one questions anything.
AirPod? I love it, dude. I love it. Do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? That's your time. Okay. So we keep talking about this. They got so many weapons. They're all really expensive. If you can't pay everyone, should they trade Brandon Aiyuk? They haven't paid him yet, and teams want him, and he's young, and we've made the arguments pro and con. Should they trade George Kittle? We've been talking about that since last year. He's the oldest, and he's getting expensive, and he's had injury issues. But really, though, if we're looking at performance, like last year, quarterback rating when targeted, Kittle was 127. He was great. Aiyuk was 116. McCaffrey was 117. There was one guy who stood out, and it was Deebo. When he was targeted more than anyone when he was healthy. Quarterback rating was 73. And to me, it's like, it looks like he came into the league as a really good wide receiver who could play running back. And now he's a really good running back who could play a little wide receiver. And he's going to be making like $28 million a year. Not that you can trade him, but if you could, I think that's the guy you trade. What do you think?
Yeah, you definitely 1,000% because the game, not even just because, look, Deebo Samuel overall in the offense might be better and has more higher explosiveness and specialty for the system than just a pure wide receiver like Aiyuk. But the difference is Ayuk's game is made to last for a longer period. So you'll keep him longer playing at a higher level than you will for a Deebo. Because how much longer does Deebo have running this dual versatile threat role? Like 2 years, 3 tops? Because eventually, what if an injury happens? or if they do, there's another season where they run them to the ground like almost close to what they did in 2021. Then all of a sudden you put more mileage in the car and stuff like that. So that's why I'm always at like, look, I get Deebo might be the better player now, maybe even next year. But in terms of longevity, Aiyuk is more sustainable to stay at a high level, and the game favors him more than a running back like a Deebo. And remember when all the discussion about Deebo's contract, it was because first half of the season, 2021, the dude was already almost at 1,000 yards. He was looking amazing, but they weren't winning, and they switched him to running back, and all of a sudden everything was all gravy in the offense. It's like, wow, so you have him in his peak form running the ball, and if you need to have him be that kind of dominant person with the ball in your hands through the aerial game, then you have that too. But you didn't really see that last year. And I think a lot of that's because maybe there wasn't too much refinement going on. He didn't work on anything. I don't think he worked on anything with his wide receiver skills. His route running is kind of blah. It's kind of blurry, very ugly, especially when
it's not good. What are his go-to routes? Like, what do they go? What routes do they call for him where he gets the ball the most?
The curve route, because every route he runs curves.
So like drag routes, like shallow crossers. Shallow crossers, not even slants anymore. Screens where there's no route really. Just get the ball in his damn hands. Honestly, his route tree has been reduced to nothing, and his running back usage is. It's not enough to justify what you're paying him.
He's like a high school player now, with like an offensive high school player. It's like you can only run these ones. We're just gonna get the ball in your hands, and you just get the ball at Deebo and watch out.
And it's because he's essentially like 6 feet two. I mean, if I had to guess, he's not 6 feet 215. Does he look 215 to you? I bet he was 215 in 2019. Now, if I had to guess, he's 220 plus. Just a guess.
Yeah, he's definitely bulkier because I think it's because he knows that he's gonna have to have the ball in his hand and try to truck more people.
Right.
More tough.
Well, but that takes away from your agility, which takes away from your route running, which takes away from your ability as a wide receiver, which is what you're getting paid to do. It's too bad. But there's more. It's not just the route running. It's the fact that he drops hella passes. I mean, his drop rate last year, let me get it, 9.6%. The year before, 8.3%. A big reason they moved him to running back so much is he drops so many passes. He does. So, yeah, I mean, actually, if you think about it, the trio of Kittle, Aiyuk, and McCaffrey is elite. And it has everything. You don't need Deebo when you have those three. And Deebo's the highest paid guy, and he gets the most targets. Like, Deebo Samuel last year in the playoffs got 22 targets in 3 games and caught 13 passes. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Versus how many carries?
Versus how many carries? Let me tell you. He got
since we're comparing the
13 carries for 34 yards and averaged 2.6 yards per carry. The whole wide back thing, man.
And who's to say how many of those targets and receptions he caught weren't like within 5 yards or at the line of scrimmage too? Because I don't think that's a little too much refining searching right there. So don't do that. But yeah, it's like everything with him is just pretty much like the infield game. I would say like the infield. We're talking using baseball analogy still. It's like everything's just infield or right there.
5 yards. 5
nothing
yards
in the outfield, nothing going deep.
Yeah.
Because he can't do it. I mean, sure, maybe he'll have some flashes that he can do it, but it's not a consistent basis that you want to say, hey, we're going to run this 18-yard, comeback route. Deebo, go run it. And I mean, no one's going to fight.
Will he get open? Will he catch the ball? Will he get open? Will he catch the ball? I mean, the first 2 phases of the job for Deebo Samuel, it feels like he's become below average. The last phase, the ball in his hands, he's elite, no question about it. But are you a running back who plays a little wide receiver or a wide receiver who plays a little running back? I think he's the first one now, which is not what he's paid to do. And you have great running backs on this team. You got Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, plus whoever they're going to take in round 3 this year. I mean, they're stacked. They don't need Deebo to do that anymore. That was back when they had Mostert and nothing. Mitchell and nothing.
I know. I still think they need him to do that because he's the only one with the ball in their hand that could take it to the house. McCaffrey's not that capable of it.
They needed to do something. What they're paying him.
So anyway, it's like they're not going to. To them, it's like to Kyle. It's like it's worth the 3 to 4 carries. We'll give him a game if it means he's going to rip off for a score because that means whatever percentages you could probably break that down to. It's like all right, for maybe he gets like 3 touchdown rip offs out of like every 30 carries or something like that. They might.
But he didn't have those long runs last year like he had in 2021. I wonder was it because
remember every time we kept asking about the highlight, like what are his top 5 highlights of last year? We came up with like 3 instantly, and then the 4th and 5th were like, shit, where?
I mean, yeah, it was like some catches he had, but He didn't have those long runs like he had in 2021. Maybe it's because McGlinchey was there instead of Tom Compton, and they didn't have that. I don't know. Maybe it was because of Brock Purdy. I do not know, but he wasn't the same player at all. But
It's just
when Ray did those plays, they hit. They worked.
And that's what I would say is because defenses know, right? You can't have the same thing be successful all the time.
Right.
And maybe that's the job on Kyle. And
Right.
that's why, remember when the Chris McCaffrey trade happened, I was like, look, this is basically like saying like, this is to free up Deebo. And also Kyle says it was almost a hidden admittance by Kyle saying, I can't figure this out. So I'm going to use this as my trump card and just have the player like bail me out because I can't figure out a way to get Deebo. They're keying in on too much. And it's the same concept of why I'm scared about Brock Purdy this year. It's like, look, you got tape on him now, and he's not getting better this offseason. You think he's going to be looked at electric or even better than last year? I would lean towards no. And
that's a great point. It's a great point because they don't do that much with Deebo if you think about it. Like he plays running back, but he doesn't run all the routes. He doesn't block. Like they run specific plays for Deebo out of the backfield. And as a wide receiver,
in the backfield, watch. That's easy.
Right. Like there's like 7 things they do with them. And then once you get all of it on tape, you can prepare for it during the week and know like, well, he's not going to adjust his route on a blitz. We saw that. He's not going to do like all the things that running backs are coached to do because they played running back their entire life and they're there throughout all practices with the coach. Like Deebo's there for a minute and a half, running a couple runs, learning his track, and that's it. Also, as a wide receiver, we're seeing his route tree is getting reduced. So as a wide receiver, there's only so much you can do with him. As a running back, there's only so much you can do with him. He's versatile, but he's also limited.
And it also leads to higher risk of getting injured in that sense too, which if we're going back to the cost, it's like, he's more of a risk. He's a higher risk, high reward player versus a Aiyuk who still to this day has not gotten hurt. Although I'm not thinking he had like one little gimpy injury, but
because in 2021 he had big plays because Kyle could scheme him open for him and then Deebo could finish. In 2022 he had big plays when he broke 4 tackles. People were on him. At least it was like all eyes on Deebo.
Like they all knew Deebo.
And like he still was like Hercules out there breaking tackles and stuff. But like, how long is that going to last?
Yeah, because the defensive coordinator is just like definitely emphasis all week. Like we see this motion, we see this formation.
Oh yeah,
we see him
when we see this. Yeah,
because I read my favorite guy I love to read all the time, Ted Wynn of The Athletic. Phenomenal job he does. He mentions how like Kyle Shanahan runs literally the same damn play with Deebo Samuel. He just tweaks it to different motions and different formation sets. It's literally the same run scheme and assignments. It's just he uses motions just to confuse them, and defenses aren't necessarily falling for that. Probably because no matter what the read is in terms of, hey, this blocker motions this, you got to take this guy because that's usually how it comes down to the finer details, right? Defensive coordinator is probably just saying like, look, if Deebo's here, he's going to take the ball. Forget this, just blow him up. The same way they say with read options, right? If the quarterback doesn't take it, just blow him up anyways. Just make him pay. Also,
I feel like 10 years ago, Kyle's idea to use a lot of motion was kind of clever because other teams weren't doing it. And now, like, his offense is everywhere. These defenses face these motions every day in practice. I don't think you're really fooling people with it anymore. You could dress it up however you want to dress it up, but I think these teams are prepared for what Deebo's doing in the run game. And when it comes down to it, it's not that much. It's a few key plays that you dress up and try to make look different. You're not fooling anyone anymore. We're on year 3 of this stuff. It was great 2 years ago, but now you're spending a whole hell of a lot of money for a guy who you don't really even need anymore. I mean, he missed time down the stretch. The Niners offense missed no beats. They were still scoring 35 plus a game with Aiyuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings.
And in the same breath with those motions, it's like it's not even just because people are seeing it from Kyle; they're seeing it everywhere, right? His disciples are everywhere now using it. And even if they're not disciples, it's a copycat.
The McVay ones too.
Of it.
I feel like 8, 9, 10, 11 of these guys, like 35% of the league has this stuff. I mean, so if you don't see it in your own practice, you see it like in a lot of your games throughout the season. It's not. I mean, it's the dominant offensive scheme you got to prepare for. Everyone has a plan for it. Everyone has tape on it. It's not like you're catching people by surprise with the Kyle Shanahan system in 2023. Quite the opposite. Smack Jones says, I am the manager. Hilarious. And I believe it. When I was in college, I had a job. I had a job at like the office in, I'm not going to explain what it was. But the way it worked was the manager had an office with windows. And he had a computer that only he could see. So he could be watching, YouTube or whatever game he wanted to watch, managing his fantasy team while the people he was managing, 4 or 5 people, all had, or like, in an open space, and he could monitor all of their screens. So I think that's the main perk of being a manager is you can slack off way more. So respect to Smack Jones making it in the corporate world. I respect it
because the manager, no one's going to snitch you out or like mess with you.
Absolutely. So you let them do it, they do, and you're allowed to watch golf and baseball on your. I'm not saying that's what he did. Not giving any names. Alex says the Commanders aren't picking up Young's 5th year. Yeah, we talked about whether the Niners and the Commanders would entertain a Lance for Young swap, and we think it makes sense for both teams. So keep it in mind. It might happen because the Niners definitely like defensive linemen with messed up knees. It's their thing. That's what they do.
Just don't advocate them doing it though. Makes sense. Don't do it for Niners. Just
another team could trade for Chase Young, but I feel like the Niners will be the last team that should trade for Chase Young. Like, know who you are. You've tried this with other players. It never works. There's something in the water in Santa Clara. It's a bad place for people with bad knees. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Is this a pivotal draft for the 49ers? I mean, they don't have any picks. They have one pick in the top 100. It's number 99. But they're losing a lot of depth.
Yeah, I think it is to a pivotal draft because, like you said, losing depth. And this is kind of like, the Niners' moment to shine, right? This is where they're supposed to thrive in the middle rounds. This is where they always get their hits. It's kind of why all their whiffs in the first round, despite all their whiffs in the first round, you let McGlinchey leave and all these other, aside from like Bosa and Aiyuk, even second round picks. It's why you can sustain so well because you're hitting on these other guys and it's making up for that losses. So kudos on you. I actually thought it was funny about what John Lynch said in his answer about, hey, why are you so successful in your middle rounds? And he mentions, well, I think it's because we're collaborative and yada yada, where we challenge each other and stuff like that. And it's like, wait, if you're so successful in the middle rounds and you're collaborative, what does that mean about your first and second rounders? You're not collaborative because you've missed a ton in those rounds.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
It's because Kyle Shanahan's pulling the trigger and usurping everyone and saying, no, screw you, I'm picking this guy. Like, well, when coaches usually pick the heavy picks, and I'm thinking about, like the Bill O'Briens, the John Grudens of the world who pick these guys, and why are they always suck? Because the coaches are terrible scouting talent evaluators. That's one thing that's not them. So they're not collaborating.
They don't put the time in. These scouts do it for years. You turn on the tape for a week and you act like you can see it. Don't do that.
That's why you have drafts of like, a Javon Kinlaw with only 1 year of showing anything. And then you have the red flags like, I don't care. We got
Dante Pettis
from the trenches.
Dante Pettis, Danny Gray, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis Price. Any one of those picks in rounds 1, 2, or 3 that didn't work out. Kello Witherspoon. Those are Kyle saying, no. That's what I want. This is what I want.
1 through 3 is the weighted picks. People like at 2, especially third round picks, really get dumbed down a little too much. It's like, no, third round picks are still you can get adequate starters there if you're doing a good job of it. And
you should be looking at those guys as guys who can develop into starters. Day 2 picks are guys you're expecting to develop into starters. Day 3 guys are guys who could be backups, and if they surprise you, then great. But those are special teams backups, all that kind of stuff. No, day 3, day 2,
on those and turn them into stars and stuff like that. They get more credit than they should. I want to say than they should. They do. They get rightful credit, but it's like that's the only reason why it kind of balances in a way why they get those first day 1 and day 2 whiffs. It's like because they're able to resupply and make up for it, which is fine, I guess.
But did they draft Kittle like expecting he was going to be a starting tight end?
No, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Hell no. I don't know. You weren't doing that. You didn't draft Brock Purdy thinking he was going to be your starter franchise. No, you didn't draft You didn't draft Elijah Mitchell thinking
you didn't draft Talanoa thinking he was going to be an all-pro safety. But when it hits you, it's great, and they hit a lot. But I think with day 2, it's not that kind of like, hey, if it hits, it hits. Like you're drafting guys that you think could be starters year 2. So you're. There's a clear need and a path for these guys to play. But and they're Kyle's picks, which is so interesting. And he said, "Why do we do well later? Because we work together as opposed to earlier in the draft."
That's Hilarious. What I thought was funny about that. But yes, this is a pivotal draft because again, this is collaborative. Kyle Shanahan's not going to have too much hands on it. I'm pretty sure he's not going to have too much hands on it. He'll probably the trades, of course, but I don't think he's going to be too much like meddling. And I know this is kind of similar to last year. In terms of like they didn't have a day 1 pick, right? It's gonna be the same thing, but you got 11 now. So I think this is pivotal. You got to hit on these guys. This is where your strengths are. This is where your strengths are. Even though they don't have a first round pick, essentially these picks are your first round picks because this is where you really thrive and hit on them. So because you're expected and you have been known to hit on these, you kind of have to hit on these guys and you have to find a couple not even a couple, a few really good ones. It doesn't matter if you package them up and get someone more proven and polished, but this is pretty pivotal at this point, considering you got Kittle on the way out, but like teetering down the contract. Eric Armstead eventually down the line, right? Trent Williams, all these players. So this is a really should be a draft to reload on.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting draft the way it's structured. Like it's like different phases. The first phase is picks 99, 101, 102. Those are Kyle's picks, obviously. And those are going to be guys that he thinks can contribute this year, next year. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does. Then they don't pick until 155. That's 50 picks later. You got 155, 164, 173. 3 picks within 18 in round 5. That's the Niners money round, right? That's where they strike gold, and they've got 3 picks right there. So that'll be interesting. They're banking on their success there. And then you got to wait again another 50 picks until the end of round 6. They got 216, 222. So one at the end of round 6, one at the beginning of round 7. Those will be an interesting little combination of picks. And then you got 3 at the end of round 7, which could end up being on, practice squad guys or whatever. So like 4 little different spots. The first one's for Kyle. The second one is that 5th round Magic. Then you got that little, end of round 6, beginning of round 7. That's like Elijah Mitchell, Jawan Jennings territory. And then the end of round 7, like, are you going to take another quarterback? Are you going to do another Brock Purdy? Are you going to take a kicker? You could do stuff like that.
They're definitely taking a kicker. I think they're
taking a kicker. Which quarterback do you think they take? Do you think they take a quarterback?
Yeah, I think they take a quarterback now.
I put Stetson Bennett in as pick 255.
God, no. Take Jake Haener or something like that. Please, God, no, do not take.
Well, Jake Haener is going to be. They got to take him in round 3. You think Kyle takes a quarterback with one of his three third-round picks?
No, I don't think he does.
I don't think he does. I think he likes Darnold too much to do it. Yeah. I think he legitimately likes Darnold.
That's why they signed him, right?
Maybe that's why the organization keeps bringing in other quarterbacks. They're like, look, Kyle, I know you really like Darnold, and Christian says he's a good quarterback, but why don't you just get to know Jake Haener? Why don't you just get to know Dorian Thompson-Robinson before you make your mind up? Here.
They got to add a third quarterback anyways. They got to get through OTAs and training camp, but I digress. I think another thing that makes this more of a pivotal draft is so much of what I've been seeing last month is how this is not a top-heavy draft, and I keep hearing after the top 10 picks, everything falls off. I'm like, God damn, why are the drafts back-to-back kind of lame a little bit in terms of talent, top-end talent, but I digress. And
you know how it's a bad draft? You know how you know it's a bad draft? A running back's going to go top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you know.
So that's all I was like. There's only one receiver expected. I'm like, Jesus, what the hell's going on? But anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is being said. This is more of a day 2, day 3.
A 5'11" quarterback's going to go number 1.
Yeah, see? So that's why. A guy who puts mayo in his coffee, Jesus Christ. Dude,
it's going to go number 2. Yeah.
Anyways, so I think this puts more pressure on the 49ers because, look, this is not expected to be a first, second-round draft. So good on you. This is the one year where this is okay not to have a top pick. This is where you guys are supposed to thrive. There's supposed to be plenty of those 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th guys, this is your element. So there's no excuses why you can't find at least 3 good players, right? Whether they're key role players / starters. They don't have to be all pro. It'd be nice if you get one of them Pro Bowl caliber, but yeah, this is your element. This is your field. Other teams who aren't known to hit the middle rounds, who will rely on those top picks, are going to be like, God damn, we're really desperate to trade down. And it's going to be like, the Niners are like, no, this is the perfect year to have all the 3rd, 4th round, 5th round picks.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's a good setup for them to replenish their depth, which they don't have as much anymore. But at the same time, they say they're trying to do big things this year. And with no picks in the top 98, I'm wondering, can they find any impact players that make them better this year?
Yeah.
They did last year. They had Jordan Mason, Brock Purdy. They found some guys late. Can they do it again? Because they need to. They need to.
But outside of those two you mentioned, Jordan Mason and Brock Purdy, who else? It wasn't helpful. Jake Jackson. I'm not putting Jake Jackson in there. He was rotational. Sure.
Not Tydavis Price. Not Sam Womack. Burford started.
Okay,
he didn't make an impact, but at least he played, which is impressive for a rookie.
That counts. That definitely 1,000% counts.
So 3, they got 3. Can they do that this year? That would be huge.
But really, Burford was the only one they kind of planned on, right? Because Purdy was not planned on, so that was kind of
they didn't really play Mason like they should have.
No, they didn't play Mason like they should have. And wasn't he undrafted, or was he actually drafted?
Yes, he was. He was undrafted, and he took the play away from both Trey Sermon and Tydavis Price.
Yeah, see, so it's last year's draft was definitely more a longevity thing, but I think also because Jake Jackson was supposed to be more of the impactful guy, and he just wasn't. So this year it's big on him, right? We've already discussed that. Last year's draft was more about longevity and future, like Nick Sakelj,
Mhm.
Jason Poes, the Kalia Davises, all those players. I think those are more like longevity players that they were looking down the line. This year, it's kind of like, can we get like an impact, like you said, an impact player or two, some guy who can get like 20 snaps a game on the other side of the ball, depending. It's really going to be huge. Or someone just you can find a starter down the line. Again, this is really in their element. Your pivotal draft is here. We kind of can't afford to have too many whiffs right now.
Yeah. I'm going back to Jordan Mason. I'm looking at his numbers right now. This is amazing to me. So Jordan Mason, 43 carries, 258 yards and a touchdown last year, 6 yards a carry. Deebo Samuel, 42 carries, 232 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry. So Jordan Mason actually outperformed Deebo on the ground last year. Elijah Mitchell did too, 45 carries, 279 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. The Niners have literally 3 running backs who are better than Deebo at playing running back. So Deebo, great, love your wide back stuff, but they need you to play wide receiver, man. They got running backs. They didn't have running backs in 2021. You filled in. Thank you very much. That was clutch. They got them now. You got to play wide receiver. That's another tangent. Sorry. Deebo hates me, so I just want to let him know since he's watching that I'm on his side and I believe in him.
The biggest threat of Deebo Samuel is the threat of Deebo Samuel. I'll never not say that.
It's true.
We'll see if that relies the same again this upcoming season, which it better not. It better not, because he's going to get those 3 to 4 carries a game still. He definitely is.
Do something with him, because in the playoffs he did nada near nada. Okay. Will the Niners find their starting right tackle in this draft?
They better hope so. I just don't think they will. Looking at, I finally got to see a full, like, nice little list on the Athletics, the prospects for tackles, and dude, top 15, they're all left tackles. It's crazy how many like guys who are expected to go in the first 5 rounds have very little right tackle experience. The only one who was like a clear cut, had 30 plus starts, was this guy called Nick Saldiveri out of Old Dominion. And he's the guy who, what was it? He's a guy who, again, his weakness is about like lunging. Like he's pretty solid at run blocking and stuff like that, but his issues is running against lunging against explosive pass rushers. So I think that's something that, you could probably teach into him. And maybe he's someone that it's rough in the early goings, but it gets better as the season goes. So that's someone I would love for them to get. I think that's my pick to get like the instant starter. But outside of that, all the other guys are left tackles who have like less than 15 starts at right tackle, and those starts at right tackle were like earlier in their careers I've seen. Whereas at least like the Old Dominion cat, at least he's been healthy. He hasn't missed games, so that's a big plus. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to, it's very hard to find instant good starting tackles in the later rounds of a draft. You can for centers and guards. Tackles is very, very hard to find, to actually find someone, unless you're a bad team that's like, hey, we're forced to play this guy. He's decent. We got to let him learn through it. Where the Niners is like, you're not a team who's going to afford to let these guys learn through it, right? Which is why I think it's going to be Colton McKivitz. And you, at this point, if the only tackle you're going to find who's a starter is a future starter at left tackle behind Trent Williams, since there's so many left tackles you can find there.
Right. I mean, unless you have a top 10 pick like Philly does, you're not going to find a day 1 starter who's going to be good in round 3. Like the whole league didn't pass on that guy 3 times. Everyone wants that guy. So what you're looking for is, you say, we're a good team. We don't need guys to start right away. Let's be patient and draft a guy and put him in our strength and training program, and he'll be something in a few years. And they could theoretically find that guy. I mean, they've had success finding guys like that in rounds 5 and stuff. So maybe, but I'm a little skeptical that a team that starts Colton McKivitz is going to win a Super Bowl. I'm a little skeptical that Colton McKivitz is going to be a starter on a Super Bowl winning team ever. But hey, call me a hater, man. I'm a Colton McKivitz hater.
Well, he hasn't shown anything, and again, there's always that's why I hate it's like, well, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible, but again, we're basing off we've seen, especially you, since you're actually there on the training camps and the practices and stuff like that. So it's not like he's shown anything to be really hopeful about, other than that he's young and technically moldable. That's the thing about young players. Like, yes, young and technically in theory moldable doesn't mean he's gonna be. But yeah, this is where it gets scary about the part about right tackle. It's like, man, it's like your team is sweet, but of all the holes on your team, that's a goddamn glaring one. And the only one that has at least top 15, according to what I saw from the prospective rankings on the Athletic that I like to use, there's only one guy who's had a huge slew of right tackle starts, and that's the guy, Nick Saldiveri from Old Dominion. And if you're relying on just one player, he's probably going to get picked. He's probably going to get picked before that in the third. He's protected to go in the 3rd round. So the Niners are picking at the end of the third round. They might not get him. They're going to probably trade up. And not unless you want to go draft a left tackle and try to flip him to the other side, which I don't think is good business. I never think it's good to put a guy who's not in a natural position and just put him day one. Just like, good luck. But then that's something the Niners will do. And I think I could definitely see them doing that.
Here's my point. I feel like here's where the Niners are inconsistent. They say stuff like, hey, man, we're a win-now team, okay? We just can't afford to play someone like Trey Lance, who's not – he lacks experience. He needs playing time. I mean, we just can't take the risk of a guy as green as Trey Lance on the field. We can't. But we can play Colton McKivitz at right tackle with his 5 career starts. Like, offensive tackle is a very important position. It's as important as any position not named quarterback. And you're like, yeah, forget it. Colton McKivitz. We love Colton McKivitz. Yeah, he's played 5 games and he's been kind of up and down, but we don't care. Trey Lance, though, is way too inexperienced. It's like, I don't know, man. If I follow your logic with Trey Lance, honestly, I do. I feel like you've botched his whole career, but I follow your logic there. I don't follow your logic at right tackle. You're telling me your team is super duper stacked. What the hell is Colton McKivitz doing on the field? Why? You're too good for that, right? I thought you were. You said you were.
Yeah, I just think from their standpoint, it's easier to mitigate like woes from a right tackle spot than it is a quarterback. But still, it's like doesn't mean just because it's easier to mitigate doesn't mean it's going to be easy in itself, right? It's like now you're going to have to tinker with your offense and try to get George Kittle on that side. The running back's going to be kicked to the quarterback's right side now, or you're going to have to just operate within the 3-second offense in terms of passing attacks. Or
maybe they'll just use their tight ends to in pass protection like they did in the NFC Championship game. That worked out. That was good. That was smart. Kenneth says, Grant, keep growing that beard, bro. Looking fierce. I don't know, man. Look at this. Is this what you want to see? Is that good? I don't think so.
Just shave the neck, and that's fine.
Shave the neck? Okay, I'll give it a shot.
You got to shave the neck.
Shave the neck. It's got to shave.
I'm about to retire mine soon, and it's starting to get hot. So once this fully grows, down,
it's a winter beard.
Goatee boys.
I feel that. All right, man. Goatee boys. You're gonna be a guy. I've never had a goatee, but I should.
I used to. I love to have it, but I don't connect it. I like to shave this part. I don't like to have like the actual like. This makes me look like I'm my own evil twin.
I see what you mean. Connecting is kind of a bad look.
I don't like the shot.
Everyone's saying shave the neck. Okay, I'll give it a shot and see what it is.
Yes, you have to shave the neck, you rookie. You stupid. Like, come on, dude. That's the way it looks more aligned.
Yeah. Javon, the barber, used to do that for me, actually, but he ghosted me. Javon, where'd you go? Javon, come back. Huh?
So, hey, people in the chat, if you get a haircut, you're supposed to have your barber's number, correct or incorrect? 99% of the people are going to say correct. You're supposed to have, if he's actually your barber, you have his number.
I went to him 4 times. Is at Fruitvale Barber in Oakland. I just walked in the first time. He was chilling. I said, can I get a haircut? He said, yeah. So I figured, man, this dude's dope. I'm going to always go in for walk-ins. He's always there chilling. I went back 2 weeks ago, and I was like, where's Javon? The dude was like, who? I was like, what do you mean, who? Where's Javon? And he was like, nah, he don't work here anymore. He's like, you want me to cut your hair? I was like, no. I don't know you. I trust Javon. So, Javon, if you're out there, hit me up, dude. I need a haircut. It's been a month.
This is what you get.
Only trust you.
You trusted him, but you didn't trust the nuts to get his. Hey, can I get your number? We can schedule something.
I trusted him to be consistent. You're right. My bad. But I did ask him. I was like, should I call you up and like make a reservation? He's like, why would you do that? Just walk in. I was like, okay then, Jay. He said that. Nah, he said he didn't even do reservations, which I liked because I don't do reservations either. That's my guy, Javon. Well, but Colt plays the game the right way. Gamer. Who's Colt?
But Colt plays the game the right way. Colt McKivitz.
Oh yeah. It's true.
I was about to say Colt McCoy. I was like, wait, what? I was like, when they signed him? Signed him where we're going? I was like, what the fuck?
All right. I'm going to go get my haircut. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. No, I'm not. I'll see what I can do. I'll be back tonight with Jesse. Be safe out there in these streets, in these times.